Hey everyone, and welcome back to Invisible Not Broken. And I hope you all miss Kiros as much as I did, because he has been gone on his world tour.
Not a world tour, just half a world tour.
Sure. Well, for someone who pretty much lives in a little room most of the time, it's you go to the grocery store. I'm pretty impressed, but you were all over the place, and I didn't get to hear from you a lot while you were gone. And then I found out why.
Yeah, I was incommunicado for part of the time because. Shit happened.
A lot of shit happened. And we're going to try to keep the swearing as we totally proved we can to M&M, because I think this is a really important episode for everyone to share. So perk up your ears, get ready, because this is one amazing story. I was pretty shocked when I finally heard from Kiros on what had happened. We are going to be talking about travel and disability, but we are specifically going to be deep diving into what happens when you are traveling with your medications. And that could be something as innocuous as pills that you wouldn't even think twice about. I know we're all pretty hyped up on the opioids, and I certainly did all of my research for my opioids, but this was something totally different that Kiros had to deal with. So let's just start off with, where did you go?
So the trip was with my husband, David. We were going to Pune, India. Well, 2 days in New York. Then we flew from New York to Delhi. We had a quick change planes in Delhi. Then to Pune, India, where we usually go. Then we went to Hyderabad for the first time. Then, because of the way the planes work, there were no direct flights out of Hyderabad to where we were going next. So we ended up going from Hyderabad through Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. We were supposed to get in at midnight and then leave at 9 in the morning. And then we were going to Amsterdam for a few days because I had a conference in Paris after that.
So before y'all get super jealous, because I already am, very jealous of this itinerary. And we want to be really clear about when we're talking about this, because where this happened, Kiros and I weren't even sure if we were going to say where, but I think we decided on yes, we would. But with the very big stipulation of, we did some more research and we found out that a bunch of countries, actually every country I researched in a quick little 15-minute research before we started talking, has very extreme laws about what pills you can bring in, how many pills you can bring in, and every one of them, including the even the EU, will arrest you if they feel like you are not doing what they specifically for their country need you to do. I found out that I was even out of compliance, which shocked me because I actually thought I had researched that.
Yeah, same here.
No, I hadn't. Not enough. So while we are talking about one specific country, because this is where this happened, we want to be super underline this a billion times clear that this country is in no way alone in their decisions and their laws.
Rules.
And we are also not passing judgment on these decision or rules per se, because we don't live there. We don't know the nuances of the social issues. We will absolutely judge the issues here in the United States where we live, but because we don't live in these places, we just visited, traveled, and had a cursory. We're not going to make a judgment on whether these are right or wrong laws. We are trying to educate y'all so that what happened to Kiros does not happen to any of you. So, please, story tell.
So, story time.
Sit around, boys and girls, or, bring the wheelchairs and walkers up.
So, starting off, when we got to Hyderabad Airport to leave, I ran into a problem that more and more airlines are controlling exactly how much weight you can have in your luggage. And since I was on a 3-week trip going across New York where it was cold, India where it was 100 degrees every day, back to Amsterdam and Paris where it was going to be chilly. I had to have 3 basically sets of layers.
Seasons of clothing.
3 seasons of clothing. So I had a lot of luggage. And so when we were packing everything up, they actually had scales in the airport, which I wasn't used to seeing. And you have to weigh your luggage before you take it up, because otherwise you do what I did. You wait in a long line, you get up there to drop your baggage off, and they're like, no, it's overweight. And you can't pay an overweight fee. You just have to get it within compliance. I had 2 bags, so I started moving stuff from one bag to the other. And I had no way to weigh it right there, so I had to go back over to the scale and weigh it again. And finally got it so where everything was all juggled out. And David's bags were checked all the way through to Amsterdam where we're going, because we were only going to have a 9-hour layover in United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi. And
See, I just want to underline that part because that's the one that trips me out. Like, I think a lot of us, if we're going to a different country, we're like, okay, we're just going to go to like the embassy website. We're going to look at everything.
Yes.
But if you're looking at like you're just going for a layover and you're just going to crash at a hotel, I wouldn't think
airport
to go,
hotel, no less. That was at the airport.
Yeah, at the airport hotel, I wouldn't think to like look up the UAE like
which I didn't.
guidelines.
I didn't.
Which is where the story gets interesting. But I just wanted to also like underline this because it wasn't like, okay, we're going to go to the.
We're not staying there.
Yeah, we're not staying here. We're stopping over and we're going to crash for a minute.
Yeah.
And that still ended up with
So,
just underlined.
Yes. So anyway, by the time I got all my baggage juggled around, I ended up having to put my CPAP into my checked luggage. And
Quick explanation on what CPAP
CPAP is a machine I use to breathe when I'm sleeping. It's I don't know what CPAP stands for. Sorry, we can put it in the thing. But it's basically a mask that I wear that keeps oxygen pressure going full on me at night because otherwise I stop breathing. Anyway,
generally bad. Yeah.
Generally bad. Anyway, so I had to put that in my checked luggage, and so then they decided they were going to check my bags all the way through like David's, and I'm like, no, I need that.
Yeah.
Had I not done that, this would not have happened.
So now you know.
So yeah. Anyway, so we got to Abu Dhabi. I got my bags. We were going toward the airport hotel, and I realized we had to go out through customs because the airport hotel in Abu Dhabi is not inside the airport. And so as we're walking out, they grab both David and I and say, we're being extra screened by customs.
Words that you never ever want to hear anywhere.
No. And so they start going through my stuff and they ask me, if you have anything, tell us now. It'll be a lot better for you if you tell us. And I'm like, well, I knew I had CBD gummies because, again, where I was going to be at, I knew it was fine. I checked India and I knew Amsterdam was going to be fine.
Okay, I'm just like ahead, but airports are different laws. So just a quick note, just like if you're in the United States and you're like, hey, I live in California, I'm traveling to Alaska, you still don't put your CBD gummies in your bag because federal space.
However,
okay,
these were hemp. They were not made from marijuana, so hemp is now legal.
Oh, I understand that, but I also understand that the very underpaid people who are security at airports do not necessarily know the incredible difference.
Well, that just recently changed, and they actually made hemp legal, so that's why I had them, because they were legal.
Okay, so we're getting to is I'm an absolute coward, and I refuse to do anything that lands in these situations.
Anyway, so I knew I had those, and I knew they were made from hemp, and so I told them, these are made from hemp. It very clearly labeled it on it that they were hemp. There was no THC in them, so they were non-psychoactive. So the security guard starts saying, well, if I eat one of these, what's going to happen to me? I said, if you have any inflammation, it'll go down. That's exactly what I said. If you have any inflammation, it'll go down. There's no psychiatric. It says right on here, no. It says very clearly, but they couldn't read English. So
you will not start liking the Grateful Dead. We promise. If you didn't like them before, Gummy is not going to start it. Yes.
So then I also had this little bag of herbs a friend of mine gave me that was a travel luck charm. They saw that and tore that open and burned it, smelled it, thinking it was drugs.
So not so much luck. Got it, yeah.
Got it. And then they found my pill case with all my pills in it, which was already all sorted day by day. And, I had never had trouble, so I didn't carry the little pill bottles with me. I actually carried everything just already sorted day by day.
And quick sideline, please do not do this when you travel. Keep all your pills in your prescription bottles and a note from your doctor, which we just found out is the most important
yes, I can
part.
say that what I found out was it wouldn't matter if I had my pill bottle on me because that wasn't the issue. Anyway,
which is what we're always told with chronic illness,
right?
To do that.
So anyway, they ask what all these are, and I actually have a thing that's like a reminder app. So it has a list of everything I take, and so they start scrolling through that, and they see Lyrica, and they lose their mind. Which one of these pills is Lyrica? I pull it out. They start dumping my pills. Just literally dumping everything out to get the Lyrica out. I'm like, no, I'll get those. Please don't dump everything out because it's all sorted. I won't know what's what. So they finally let me pull everything out, and I pull all the Lyrica out, and they tell me I'm being arrested. Yes, you heard me, arrested. The CBD they were just going to confiscate, but the Lyrica, they were arresting me.
I mean, I've taken Lyrica.
Yeah, and they asked me why I'm taking it, and I said I get micro seizures in my brain, and I take it to control that. I get phantom smells, and which the doctor says is micro seizures in my brain, and so this is why I take it, was for that. And I was very clear about it. I had all the prescriptions from my medical doctor and the apps in my phone. I had all of that, all my medical data in my phone. It did not matter. They said, where are your physical prescriptions? I said, in the U.S., we don't get a hard copy prescription. It's all sent electronically to my pharmacy. I pick up the prescription. I never get a physical thing for it. And that was not good enough, what I had in my phone. Even though it was from my doctor, it showed everything. That was insufficient. And I found out after the fact that if you can go to, supposedly you can go to your pharmacy and get a printout of all the things you take with your prescriptions that they get sent. Or you can go to your doctor and get a printout. From now on, when I travel, I will make sure I have those. Anywho, skipping ahead, I was told I was being arrested. I immediately freak out because I'm in a foreign country and being told I'm being arrested. We didn't get in until midnight, so this is now, by the time they've gone through our stuff, it's 1.
See, when you told me you were being arrested, my first thought was, what are the laws for homosexuality in this country?
Which, it's also illegal.
Are you safe? Is David safe? I love all of you so much.
Yes. In that particular country, homosexuality is also illegal, so we did not tell them we were a couple.
So, yeah, and then I was wondering, how's David even getting information about you?
Well, we're together at this point still.
Okay. So David's there when,
David
does not know your husband, knows, this is, the sweetest, most lovely man who's, I'm just trying to imagine how he and Stu are sort of similar, and they're, calm.
He's traveled a lot, though, and he's lived overseas, so he was very calm.
Pretty calm? Okay.
He was calm. He kept me calm. He's like, it'll be okay. They'll probably just have you pay a fine. And he's doing Google searches on his phone and stuff about things, trying to see, and he's like, you'll probably just have to pay a fine. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. He keeps reassuring me because I am losing my mind. Because my doctor got arrested overseas giving medication to a patient because he was in Doctors Without Borders and was locked up for 3 months.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, he got locked up for 3 months. I am now scared shitless.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so, anyway, that was, like I said, midnight. We got pulled aside to get customs things. 1 a.m., they tell me I'm going to be arrested. They put David and I in a room and just left us there. Then they came back several times and asked me questions. Mm-hmm. And then they came back about 2:30 in the morning with a printed page, all in Arabic, and said, okay, you need to sign this. I said, what is it? And they're like, oh, it's it's our interview of you. It's all the details. I'm like, I can't read this. And they're like, well, you can't move forward with this until you sign this. So I had to sign it in quadruple, not triplicate, in quadruple. I had to sign 4 forms that were all the same. All right. Then, hold on. just let me go through this whole thing first.
Okay, and because people yell at me online for this, my laugh response is just my I'm shocked response. I'm not laughing at Kairos for all of you who yell at me online about this. It's my, I'm shocked response. So keep the yelling to a minimum. Okay,
so then at around 2:30, they came and got David and I, and as I described it, Perp walked us to the airport because we had two security guys in front, 2 security guys behind us, and we're wheeling our bags through the airport over to a security station, which is right outside their police station that's in the airport.
So much like, things that happen in this country, you were not given an interpreter, you were not given...
We were very lucky that when they were going through our bags and doing all this stuff, that one woman who had just gotten off work, who spoke really good English, walked up. And when I kept telling them, this is not psychoactive, as far as the CBD, this is this, she walked up and she started explaining it to them and told them, oh, this is this. She could read the thing where it said it had no THC. So she was telling them all these things. And I think things probably would have gone a lot worse had it not been for her happened to have been there when it happened and to be able to go, oh yeah, I can read all this. I can tell you what this says and translate for me.
But you were not given an interpreter during this whole procedure. You were given one for when you have to sign legal documents, much like happens here in the United States for immigrants who are here. And that horrible. I'm just trying to draw for
parallels.
Anyone who's going, it doesn't happen here.
It does happen here.
Clear, it does happen here.
Okay, so then, like I said, they get us over to outside the police station, and they just dump us there with about 8 other people who were sitting there and say, stay here. We didn't know what was going on. That was at 2:30 in the morning. We sat there. We asked several times what was going on. And they said, you have to wait to talk to the judge. Well, finally at 7 a.m., David went, we had a 9 a.m. flight, supposedly. David went and goes, we have a 9:30 flight. Can we find out what's going on? Well, the judge thing doesn't open until 8. The court doesn't open until 8. I'm like, that's going to be really tight to get all the people who are here ahead of me done and get us on that 9:30 flight. So David starts looking into, is there another flight out? And there was. There was at 1:30 in the afternoon. So they start finally taking some people away, and things start to look like, okay, maybe they're going to get to me. Maybe they're going to get to me. And they came and they interviewed me at about 8:15 or so. Took my statement and I said, I'm sorry, I did not know this was illegal here. It's something I take. I've got prescriptions for, and I gave them all those explanations all over again. And like I said, at this point, they've not... Oh, I skipped a step. When we were still over at the first place, they took all of my lyric out, took all of the CBD out, laid them on white pieces of paper in front of me, and took my picture with them. So I was literally booked right then. And that was my guilty shot, as it were.
I am kind of loving you have the street cred now, but...
Jeez. Yeah, I'm almost 50 years old, and it's the first in my life I've ever been even close to being arrested.
Wow.
So, and it was in another country. Anywho, so at like 8:30, they finally take me back, talk to me a little bit, and then they tell me they're waiting on an interpreter because the people there, everybody speaks some English, but not that good. And so they're waiting on an interpreter. So sent me back out. I waited. 9:30 rolls around. We miss our flight. David's like, okay, we can still get on the 1:30. He had to go before the 9:30 flight and get his bag pulled off it because his bag was checked all the way through. And it was going to set off alarms about the fact that he wasn't on the flight with his bag. So he had to go pull his bag out now too. And when he did that, it triggered something. Because now they realize he's not in the part of the airport he should be in. So at 10 o'clock, they come and ask to see his passport and ask who he is. And at that point, they take him back at about like 10:30, 11 o'clock. They take him back to interview him, and I get a frantic text from him. They're not letting me come back to you. I had already cleared customs, but I was still in customs, which was setting off alarms. So they kicked him out. So now I'm suddenly all alone. So the person who'd been keeping me from losing my mind is now gone. And we only had texting. And, I've been trying to charge my phone overnight on his backup battery. He's now gone. So I have whatever juice I have left in my phone, and I have no place to charge it at. So I'm getting more and more stressed that my phone's going to die, and I can't get a hold of him. So my stress levels were just climbing at this point. And finally so that was at like 10:30-ish. Finally at 1, they came and got me and told me that, I had another form I had to sign that was, again, all in Arabic. That I'm like, I can't read this, folks. I can't understand what you're telling me to sign here. So that guy actually read it off line by line. That was my statement of what I said.
Kind.
Yeah, because finally did that for me at least. And so then I signed it. Then they said I had to pay a fine. I'm like, okay, here's my card. No, we only take cash. So then I got perp walked through the airport over to the ATM machine to get the cash out. Perp walked back, pay them. It was roughly $300 US. And then they released me, and I got through to where David was. And of course, I want to run up, hug him, kiss him, hold him. I can't, because homosexuality illegal. We have now missed the 1:30 flight, though. And we go to the airline we were on. Hey, is there any other flights going out? No, there isn't. Well, there were, but they were going through other countries that I did not feel comfortable going through at that point. Because I did not trust certain other countries that I thought might have issues again with homosexuality, and I needed to get away. And so the first available flight we had was at 2 a.m. It's now 1:30, almost 2 p.m. So we ended up going over to the airport hotel anyway. David slept. I stared at the ceiling all night because I didn't actually relax until we were on the ground in Amsterdam, because the whole plane flight, my brain was spinning. They're going to turn around and take me back. They're going to turn around and take me back. They're going to turn around and take me back. That's how, even once we were in Amsterdam, something would trigger it, and I would just freeze, and David's like, are you okay? And I would just have it for several days afterwards. I had such severe post-traumatic stress over it that I just kept freezing and just like panic attack. And it just, I've never in my life had anything that traumatic. And it was just that 24 hours in that country when I thought I was going to be arrested and didn't know what was going to, because there was so little information coming to us. If I had been told, hey, this is going to happen, I'd have been okay, because I knew what the steps were, but not knowing for so many hours what was going to happen next. Then they took David away and I was all alone. So my panic got even worse. It was just terrifying to me. And, I showed them my prescriptions. I showed them everything on my phone. I had all of that information. I did not know. And I found out after the fact, because they told me after the fact, after all this was done, that, if you have to come back, you can go online. There's a form you can fill out. You say, I have all these medications, and you fill this all out and you send it to them. And then you're approved to come into the country with these drugs. But it never came up in any of my searches beforehand.
I mean, I did a little bit of digging before we started this, and to find the exact pills that the UAE say are absolute no, and there are some that are an absolute no, even though they are prescribed, and there's also other restrictions that if you're taking a longer trip and you need a 3-month supply, there's a whole nother thing that you have to do, and that's also for the EU, by the way, folks. Like the EU requires 3 months of opioids to have a special dispensation, but like if you're just like booking your travel. You would think more travel companies like Travelocity or like any of the big travel companies would have like a little asterisk that's like, do you take medication? Here's the guide for the medication in the country you're going to. Why is that not a thing? Like, okay,
why is it
I'm
not
not asking
more,
you that. I'm just asking
why is it not more prevalent when you do a search on that country's websites?
Yeah.
That these, if you're traveling to our country, if you have these drugs, you're going to be in trouble, or, more prominent so that people that travel with commonly prescribed medication don't run into this.
We're not talking fentanyl here, folks. Like,
this was Lyrica. I mean, this was something.
That's why it was just jaw to floor.
And the one guy kept telling me, this is a party drug. I'm like, it is? And I'm thinking, how can this be used as a party drug? Because, I mean, I know I take it for seizures. I mean, what?
If y'all know a better way to take Lyrica, let us know in the comments. Oh, my God. I slept for 3 days the one and only time I took Lyrica, and I never took it again. But wow.
Yeah, so that one's beyond me.
Like, Sleeping Beauty is a party drug.
I don't know. It surprised me. I mean, I was worried they were going to have issues with the CBD once I got pulled over, but they really didn't have an issue with that. That was not the thing they were really focused on. The thing they were focused on was Lyrica. And funny side note.
Oh yeah,
here's a funny side note. I told you about how they took my picture with the drugs that I had. So they put
it gone viral?
No, they put like a white piece of printer paper down, put all the CBD on one, put all the Lyrica on the other, and then had these little tent cards with the name of the drug on it in front of it, so that basically the drugs were in front of me and then I was behind them. But the tent cards were in a big trash bag. They had a trash bag full of tent cards. And I'm like, guys, get a file folder, organize them by name, letter. That's what took so long that I was sitting over there forever, was it took them that long to search through all those tent cards they had to find the right ones.
That's helped with office organization.
I suggested, I don't know if they ever did it, but I was thinking, really, if you guys do this at all, you have all these printed out names, why not just put them, get a little file folder with the alphabet, even if you just have to go through all the L's, you're not going through everything in a trash bag. But, funny side note.
That's hilarious.
That was the one thing that made me laugh, the entire ordeal, was that. Oh, there is one other thing that made me laugh.
Yeah, please.
So, after I paid my fee, they printed out my receipt for it. Mm-hmm. I got a receipt for my fee.
Oh, lovely. How does that work for your taxes now?
No.
Do you get to write this off?
I was told in a very serious tone. The next time you come to the UAE, which I had to resist laughing when he said that, the next time you come to the UAE, you can bring this form with you and get all this money back. Because it's just a fine for you bringing this in. When you come back, you can bring this form, come to this office here, and it'll all be refunded. And I'm thinking, when I come back? Not if I can help it. This was a traumatic experience for me.
I'm in architecture,
and it would be,
and I wanted to go so bad, but like even before your story, there was a different news story about someone going into the United Emirates and being arrested for something that even as cautious, I'm overly cautious about everything, and she was arrested for a glass of wine on a United Emirates flight. And she was still arrested with her child. And I'm like, I will, as much as I want to see this place and I want to see the architecture, I will never go there. I'm too scared.
Yeah, and the thing is the ironic thing to this is, so the conference I was going to at the end of this trip was for the TV show Sense8 in Paris. And there were two women from Dubai that were there. And I told them my story, and they're like, oh, it's because you went through Abu Dhabi. If you'd gone through Dubai, no one would bat an eye. That's what they told me. Because they said Dubai is much more cosmopolitan. Dubai is much more cosmopolitan, and Abu Dhabi is the capital, and they're very anal. That's what they said to me. But they were, they're crazy about stuff like that. That's what she said. It's like, okay, but they were sympathetic, but they're like, yeah, that's just that city, not all of the UAE is what they said.
I mean, and to be fair, there are states I wouldn't want to fly in with my medication in the United States because I know it would become an issue.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
we're not picking on anyone is our point. We're just trying to underline a billion times. We are not picking on one particular place.
Yeah, which is why I wanted to throw that in, because they said, yeah, I was really surprised that happened to you. Where'd you fly in through? I said, Abu Dhabi. I'm like, oh, if you'd gone through Dubai, you'd had no trouble. I'm like, oh, okay, well.
I was afraid you were targeted because you're with your husband. I thought that was why you got
No, we both had two suitcases wheeling them, so we were, separate apart, walking through at the same times. All I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I swear though,
I was
pulled aside for extra security 3 different times on this trip, and I swear it's because I did my entire head in blue. I dyed my entire hair blue because I was going to be in India for their Holi festival, which is the festival of colors.
Yeah.
And I swear that's why, because everybody saw the blue hair and felt that, he's some kind of crazy guy. I need to check him out.
It's a gorgeous color of Smurf. I mean, it's the color my feet usually are, so that's chilling with that. I know it's funny because, okay, so if you've listened to the podcast or if you've gone onto our YouTube channel, you know what Kyrus and I look like. We live in a world of privilege, of paleness, and I still get stopped at every time I fly.
That's because you look guilty.
I actually get, my gynecologist is like, I wouldn't have even done that. Like, in the airport, they're just like, it's like a date gone wrong every time I go in.
It's either that you look guilty or they really want to feel you up. I don't know.
I mean, I don't even know how to respond to that. I'm leaving that alone. I'm walking away. No, I'm hobbling away. But it cracked me that you don't deal. I always think everyone deals with this psychotic level of security where. I practically get strip searched inside the airport.
I did this time.
Yeah, I've never been arrested at the airport, so you do have that.
Skipping over one. I did skip over one of the things that happened.
Yeah.
So when they arrested me, one of the things I had to do is they stripped me down to my underwear and had me squat while he put his hand inside my underwear to make sure I wasn't dropping anything out of my butt.
Well, that's incredibly personal.
That was incredibly personal.
That's horrifying.
Yes.
I mean, again, laugh reflex, just because I'm just trying to process this as selfishly I do through my own idea of what that would be like. And with sexual assault issues, I would have a nervous breakdown in that room. I would lose my fucking mind in that room after the things that I've been through.
Yep.
That would have triggered everything. And then the other thing that I was thinking about as you were talking is you're not healthy.
No.
And you are stuck in rooms alone without access to your medication, without access to, I'm guessing, just the food you might need or the kind of liquids you might need.
We didn't, the whole time, we had no access to food.
Yeah.
So from midnight when we got in, and the thing is, I can't usually eat on the planes either because they don't have dairy-free meals. Mm-hmm. So, last thing I ate was probably before we left. I didn't eat much on the flight. And then we got in. And from midnight until 1 p.m., I didn't eat. I had very little water even. And it was hot in that airport, let me tell you. And so, that whole time, I'm just panicked, no food, no water, and,
I mean, the first thing is your life. Are you physically safe? Then the next thing is your liberty. Are you in the start of a Hallmark or a Lifetime TV movie?
Yeah, they had my passport, so I wasn't going anywhere.
I know. And then the number 3 is your physical discomfort going to a actual medical emergency with not having access to all of these are reasons. I mean, I have so many reasons why I don't travel like this, but that is probably the top of the list is these are things that could kill someone.
Well, and so one thing that hasn't been mentioned in the podcast because it's happened more recent enough that we haven't discussed it, was the last trip I took in January. We got to Miami and I'd had a spider bite. I think I may or may not have talked about this.
Not on the podcast, I don't
Okay.
think. But I mean, we are talking to two very chronically ill people who.
I'd gotten a spider bite.
Goldfish, yes.
I'd gotten a spider bite on my hand, and it had swollen up pretty bad. And the doctor here said, well, you're leaving for vacation tomorrow. If it gets worse by the time you get to Miami, because they knew I was having a layover in Miami, get looked at. Well, I get to Miami, and my whole hand was swollen. So we went to the hospital, and on the way to the hospital, I started having chest pains. Mm-hmm. And so the clinic sent me to the ER, which I just paid several $1,000s worth of bills on. Yeah. Anyway, they sent me to the ER because I had something called bigeminy, which means that my heart beats twice, then skips a beat. My heart beats
like
twice.
Gemini.
Well, I am a Gemini. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, my heart does this 2 beats, skip, 2 beats, skip, 2 beats, skip consistently. Like textbook definition. The nurse printed out my EKG because they said they'd never seen such perfect textbook bigeminy in the wild. They'd heard about it in school.
In the wild. Oh, congratulations.
I am now, and the funny thing is the person at the clinic did it and the person at the hospital did it because they both said the same thing. I've heard about this, I've read about this, I've never actually seen it in person.
Oh, look at this example. Grazing. Yeah, that's lovely.
So I am currently, while we're sitting here recording, wearing a heartbeat monitor that is super glued to my chest that I have to wear for 2 weeks, and then I mail it in so they can see how my heart is doing over time. So anyway, I just got diagnosed with this before this trip, so all the stress of sitting there, my heart was hurting. I didn't have access to the nitroglycerin pills because those were in my pill thing, which they had.
I mean, we have something called the ADA here in the United States, the American Disability Act, which is a toothless little thing, but it's important, and it was an important first step. It should have gone way further,
yes,
but it was an important first step. Now we need to look at something that's more international, and we need to look at that for the ability for people who have disabilities, and who, let's be honest, it's not just us. It should be enough that it's just us. That should be enough, but it's not. So here, let me throw this in too. To do these things would also help the generation that's coming up that are getting into the retirement age, the age of travel. Mm-hmm. So if other countries, including this one, because this one is not exempt from these laws for people coming in, I'm talking every single country in this planet needs to have a international agreement on how disabled people can travel without the risk of death. Mm-hmm. And that risk of death is pretty extreme if you are looking at not being with any of your medication, including nitroglycerin pills, like heart pills. You can't access them. You can't access your water. You can't access your food, all of which could lead to a catastrophic physical event. So there has to be some law that at least the airports all decide on.
And I was in pain the whole time too because, long flight already, my legs were swollen and my feet were swollen, stuff like this. Then all we did was sit in chairs. There was no place to put my feet up. So I'm sitting there the whole time for 12 hours in the airport too, after being on like a 7-hour flight to get to Abu Dhabi, then 12 hours there, then another 5 hours to Amsterdam before I could relax at all.
So if you're listening to this and you know of any news outlets or you have any in with any of the travel agencies that are in the Silicon Valley, can you please pass this along? Because I'd like to travel. If ever, my health gets well enough, I'd like to be able to do that. I know that there's a lot of you out there who are scared to get on that plane because of losing all the time. Like we saw what happened on United Airlines with someone getting dragged out of their seat. And that didn't just happen once. And I mean, anyone with Ehlers-Danlos saw that and went, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. My arms would be at the back of the plane. My legs would be at the front. It would be a hospital visit. So as these... and the delays that can happen where you are now having to renegotiate when your food's going to come. So now you have to renegotiate your medication.
That happened to us.
Yeah, and you have to renegotiate your medication.
Yes, that happened to us because they closed Pakistani airspace. So instead of a 14-hour flight from Newark to Delhi, it was a 16-hour flight because we ended up having to go down almost all the way to Mumbai, like down through the Gulf there between Saudi Arabia and India, go down through there, and then back up to Delhi because we couldn't go through Pakistani airspace. They'd closed it. So we got on the plane, we got all the way out, we're taxiing to take off, and they sent us back to the gate because we had to get a new crew because the time that they'd spent getting us ready to take off, they were now going to be overtime.
Yeah, so what we need is for international airports to all come to some sort of accord to make sure that their disabled chronic illness and patients, people with or their clients who have medications they need to take with food, that all of us are not in danger.
Yeah, and see, the one of the things they wanted me to do was they wanted me to put my medications in my check luggage, and I'm like, no.
Oh, hell no.
I'm not putting that where someone can just reach in and grab it, while they're passing through. No. Sorry. Not putting it where my luggage could get lost, or some baggage handler can go zip, zip, there's a bunch of pills. No.
Yeah, which, by the way, has happened.
Which I also refuse to put electronics in check luggage for the same reason.
Yeah, I'm really, everyone knows I am Fluffy Bunny, and I totally forget that there's, people will steal things. It just doesn't click with me. I know that's the look that everyone gives me, including my mother. And the thing that she told me that I was like, oh, that's not just a lot of worry. That's actually a really good point. Was I used to put my medication in my backpack that would get stored up at the top.
Which I do that, but that thing locks.
Yeah, I don't have a lock on mine. She's like, oh, it just happened where someone was going through. And you would never know because everyone's always going up into that area to grab things out of. Someone could easily grab your pills out of there and you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I think I would because my backpack makes a ton of noise too.
Okay, well, you're a special, lovely case. But I'm just saying in general.
In general, I agree with you.
I now have this incredible jacket that has 1 billion pockets. And I just put each of the pill bottles in my jacket so I can easily access.
And I think I may have already mentioned it, but I'm going to reiterate it, that I was told that you can go to your pharmacy and get a printout of all your medications so that because they get the actual prescription.
Yeah.
And so you can get a printout of that. Also, your doctor can supposedly give you a printout of that so that you have that to keep with you when you're traveling. Hopefully that's enough.
That idea. So, if you're traveling for work, you need your HR to get on top of this and to look into where you are flying to and whether your medications are allowed where you're flying to.
I can tell you right now, HR is going to tell you it's not their job to do that.
They might, but I think it's really important that big companies start realizing that they're just, just as they are starting to realize that the people who work for them who are gay are in danger in certain states, in certain countries that you might not want to be traveling to those or have your company retreats at those. I know we'll talk about that, yes. But I'm just saying, as they've noticed this and gone our trans workers are in danger if they go to this state or to this country, we are no longer going to support that area. We are going to remove all of our business from that area. We're not going to get a hotel there. We're going to do business elsewhere. I think it's also kind of important for these companies to look at their disabled workers and their chronically ill workers or their workers who are just on medication and go, you know what? This is an area where this is a danger. So we might not be able to do a whole lot, but what we can do is send each of you a list of what to do, what will happen with phone numbers so that this happens to one of our workers that they can do this. I am just troubleshooting. Yeah,
I agree. But my concern there is that HR is going to say it's not their job to keep track of all the pills you're on.
Well, what I'm saying is if you're going to say, okay, well, this person needs to travel to this country, then they can go, by the way, this is this country's laws that you should know. We're highlighting the laws. These are things you need to watch out for. This is the medication list that they don't allow in here, just in case you're on any of these meds. These are some of the local customs you should probably have a general idea about so you don't do something stupid.
They're going to tell you. Honestly, I think that's a great idea. I honestly say, having dealt with enough HR people, their answer is going to be, that's your responsibility. Even though they're the ones sending you there. They're going to tell you it's your responsibility.
I think that'd be a good time to start re-looking at that HR department. So I think maybe if you want to keep your people working quickly and smoothly, they do that so much better when they're not in jail. It's amazing how much more can get done. I know Orange is the New Black was awesome and super cool. I'm just saying that was an anomaly. That was a blip. That was thank you, Piper, for bringing your experience into the general, mindset where I think all of us have learned a whole lot, even from a fictional TV show, and I think it's actually entered our consciousness. Thank you, Piper. I'm saying maybe not for everyone.
Right.
You aren't as productive.
I like I said, I agree that it's something that I think HR should do. I'm just saying, knowing HR departments, I doubt it's going to happen that way. People have to take the responsibility themselves, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, was to get this information out there, because I didn't know it, and I thought I had done all the research beforehand, and so I thought our listeners, who a lot of people in our listeners are on medications and stuff, should know that these are things that can trip you up. Be very thorough when you're searching for, search for your drug name and the name of the country you're going to for each of your drugs, because I would never have thought Lyrica was going to be an issue. Never in a million years.
I will also throw out there, when I was doing some research, and I only did the research on United Emirates. I'm so sorry. I was trying to get stuff done really fast. I will do more for other countries as well. But the language is unclear. when it talks
Yeah.
about medical equipment. So you could actually read that one paragraph. My sister's graduated law school, so I'm like super into like all these legal arguments. But you could argue that your inhaler would not be legal here.
One of the ladies I talked to because I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and she said that in one of the places she traveled to, they confiscated her blood testing machine for her diabetes because it was in her daughter's backpack. And when she got through everything, she asked her because she needed to check her blood, and the daughter's like, "It's not here." They had just when it went through security, because that particular country, when it went through security, it went behind where they couldn't see, and it was just taken out. And I've had all kinds of questions about my CPAP when I've been traveling before too. That what is this? I'm like, it's a machine to let me breathe, and they'll do that swipe thing to test for drugs and or explosives, where they swipe your hands and swipe your cheek and swipe your shoes and.
Oh my god! No, sorry. Like when I went through security, they did like the swiping into my bra. They went into and like up into like I was getting a mammogram basically. So it was like I know they're weapons of mass destruction apparently. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more. But I was like, we're really that would be more inventive and creative than I would possibly think to be.
It's because that's where people stuff drugs because it's a safe place to not getting checked. I've never
heard my breast being called a safe place, but that'll work.
In the bras, that women with a smaller chest can stick things of drugs in there to make it look like she's got a bigger chest. But it's a place that no one's going to check there, so they check there now. It's people smuggling the drugs have gotten really inventive on where they put them, so they have to get really inventive with searching people for them, which is not so good for people that aren't carrying drugs.
No, and I like when you're traveling with children, as when I went to travel with my daughter, because I'm disabled and I'm in a wheelchair, I get like pushed behind, but they shoved her forward through security, and she was on the other side of security while they kept me back. So I'm just like, I just have to rely on like she has really good common sense. She has a very good head on her shoulders, but we're in a different place, and I am good at worrying. I am very good at being worried, and I kept trying to keep my eyes on her, but I was getting this complete pat down, and they would not let me forward, and they would not let her back in to be next to me, and it was scary. I don't understand why we have to terrify people to put them on planes. I mean, there's got to be a better, more effective way of doing this that does not separate out families, does not create incredible physical and emotional distress for people with chronic illness or mental health issues. I mean, I joke around about my anxiety a bit, and I do have some serious depression and anxiety issues, but nothing compared to what other people deal with. And to deal with anxiety, as we've talked to a few people talking about their anxiety and being on airplanes and dealing with, very verbally abusive airline workers, we've got to come to a better place. Like, there has to be a better way to be able to move about the world.
And it's really, it's from a historical perspective, it's fascinating because there were many more hijackings, etc., back in the 70s, etc., when we had lax security. And now, what we end up having is close to security theater because it was proven the other day, someone got a gun through security. They found that once it got through security and freaked out, that it had gone completely through security, no problem. Because people aren't paying attention. You got underpaid workers, or especially, after that fiasco with not paying them for a long period of time. You got underpaid workers, not paid workers doing this job. And I feel for them in a lot of ways because it's a very tedious, boring job. But it doesn't really make us any safer, I don't feel. No,
the ground crew can be anyone who can get anything into a plane. If we're going to look at what...
Well, they have to go through they have to go through background checks, etc. But still, that doesn't mean they can't be compromised.
Teachers go through background checks. Do you want to have a discussion about the interesting teachers that we've come across in our lives? What I'm saying is that this country, I feel like, does these wild emotional swings, and we have to do something rather than we do research and then do the right thing that scientifically and through research backed decision making power comes to something that will actually make things better rather than just theater.
Yes.
That does not make anyone safer. It's just baffling to me that we can't just be logical. Why
Right.
does it all have to be? And I'm the most emotional person ever. But I'm just like, come on, people, logic. Let's just try
But
logic.
to turn the tables around, I know that people come here and have issues too because things that are okay for them back home are not legal here, and so it runs in the same gambit of, roll the dice. Am I going to be safe where I'm going?
Okay, anyone who listens to this podcast already knows we do not romanticize this country at
No.
all. So please don't think we are giving the United States at all even close to a pass on any of this.
No.
I'm even saying that there are states I won't even travel to.
Yeah.
I will not go to certain states. Refuse.
Well, when I went with my kid to Pennsylvania recently, I normally do travel with my CBD because it's hemp-based and it's legal now. But there I didn't because that state we were going was one that was notorious for cracking down on shit. And I'm like, I'm not taking any chances.
It's just so frustrating. I don't know what answers are. I don't really feel like...
Oh, I don't have any answers to this. No, I just...
We are informing you all, please be so careful. And,
yes.
Learn from Kyros.
Yeah. Don't go through the 24 hours of hell that I did and be scared out of your mind that, you don't know if and when you're going to be ever released. And I was lucky that I had the money to pay the fine. What if I hadn't had $300 to pay the fine?
There are so many what ifs here. Everything you said is like the start of a Lifetime TV movie. You could have gotten Chris Hemsworth to play you.
No.
It could have been good.
No. Not Chris Hemsworth. No, I'm not. No.
No,
not even
saying,
close.
You could just kind of push the imagination and get the...
No.
Okay. Anyway, it just does sound very Kafka-esque.
Yeah. But I'm okay. I made it home okay. I made it to my convention okay. I had a great time at my convention. But, I did this. It's funny because last year, going to India, is when I did the travel podcast and kind of logged my day-by-day travel of how my symptoms were and how things were going. So I did all that last year with travel. And so this year, I've got another story of, hey, I got arrested.
Yeah, I thought we were going to do... another more in-depth how you travel internationally with disabilities, one of our usual ones for when you go away, but this was a surprise.
Yes. Funny side note.
Hilarious, yes.
I had a doctor's appointment today because, I got cortisone injections in both knees before I left because my doctor wants me to lose weight before he'll do the knee replacement. And so I got back and I had my doctor's appointment with my knee doctor today. He walked in, did not look at the MRI I had done before I left. Spent less than 5 minutes in the room with me and told me that he can't help me. He's referring me back to the doctor in his office that originally referred me to him because I'm still too young for a knee replacement. And I told him all the stuff that I did while I was on vacation of getting out and walking around like he asked me to do to try and lose weight. And he used that as proof that I didn't need the knee replacement. That's what his exact words were. Well, if you did this climb up to here and da-da-da-da, you obviously don't need a knee replacement. I'm like... I just got cortisone shots right before I left so that I could be active and do those things. And yes, I climbed up to that fort, which was X number of steps up there. It took me 2.5 hours, and I did it in, what should have been a 10-minute climb took me 2.5 hours, so I did it in stages and kept stopping to breathe and rest. So, but I wanted to accomplish it because I wanted to get that exercise because I want to get the knee replaced, and I was trying so hard, and you use that as proof that I don't need it. That was my morning this morning. I came here, I was already in a very bad, pissy mood because that's just... I'm trying to do what you say, and you're using that as a reason why I don't need... So now he's referred me back over to the other guy to try these treatments of stem cells and stuff in the knee, which I know for a fact, because it happened before, my insurance won't cover. Because we looked into it before, and my insurance won't cover it. That's why that doctor referred me to this one for the knee replacement. But, they won't do my knee replacement until I'm mid-50s. So I said, so basically you're saying I've got to wait another 5-6 years before you'll consider it. In pain, putting on more weight because I can't move around very much. Thanks.
Yeah, you were not in a good place when you walked through the door.
No.
I've learned how to,
look at my face and go, ooh, that's not pretty.
All right, I will draw while you're getting everything ready. I'll do some research while you are working on this.
Yeah, but, like I said, the main takeaway I wanted to make sure people had on this is I thought I had researched it really well and ran into one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. And I wanted to tell other people, that way you don't make the same mistake I did. Do like the drug, each drug you take and the country you're going to in a Google search together, because that way, yes, some of the things that I didn't know came up. Searching this country and what drugs, are illegal didn't get me, but anything like the big drugs that I knew would be illegal, it didn't give me Lyrica and things like that. So I would recommend really Googling each drug you take with the country you're going to. And if you're going to multiple countries, do one for each one. I know it's a pain in the ass, but better to have, spend a couple hours doing your research than, 12 hours sitting, not knowing if you're ever going to be released or not. And I can laugh about it now, thankfully.
See, when you laugh about it, the listeners don't get mad at you. Because I have a laugh reflex when things just go beyond what I can, process mentally. I get yelled at and get called cruel. I mean, I am, but...
Well...
not because I laugh.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say, I don't see yeah.
So if you wanted to hear more about what we were talking about with security theater, and please understand, I have nothing but respect for the people who are there, who are working on the ground. As I joke about the mammograms I've gotten, I also have to say they were incredibly nice. They were just as embarrassed about the whole thing as I was. We just have to, we're sorry. Very nice people. But if you want to hear more about security theater, there's a really great show that I'm addicted to called Adam Ruins Everything, and he has a really good episode on this, and he cites all the sources. It's a pretty fantastic watch through. He does a lot of really great.
Yeah.
I mean, I really love that show. That's Olivia and my favorite,
that doesn't surprise me.
But I will, I'm going to link a whole bunch of this in the notes, and then Kyrus will be doing some research, and we'll link his research in. But again, if you work HR in a tech company or any company that you are flying people out, please take a listen to this. Take this seriously. Your workers will do better if they are not traumatized and in jail.
Yeah, the reason we were there was because David's company has 2 offices in India, and and when we were doing our research, we saw that there were some in India that were problematic. Not the ones I take, thankfully, but there were some other things that are commonly taken that are problematic in India. So it's a matter of if you do work for one of these companies, or you do have to travel for work, these are things you need to know, because you can run afoul of it. Even like I said, I'm really good researcher, and I thought I had it researched to the nines and knew exactly, what I was going to be dealing with, and I still had this horrible, horrible thing happen to me. So I want to make sure that nobody else has to go through what I went through. Like I said, I can laugh about it now, but for that 24 hours, even several hours after that, when I was in Amsterdam, I was traumatized. Oh, quick sidebar. Once we got to Amsterdam, because these are pills that I need for brain seizures, right? Little miniature brain seizures. And I did the research while we were sitting there, stuck in the airport. And it said if you go off Lyrica, take it for a while and then go off Lyrica, it can actually cause your symptoms to get worse. Yeah. So I'm now having a panic attack, not only about everything that's going on, but am I going to start having worse seizures? And I'm only in Amsterdam with David for a few days. Then I go to Paris for 5 days by myself. So if something happens when I'm in Paris, there's nobody there to backstop me. So I was having even panic attacks about that. When we got to Amsterdam, we told the lady where we checked in what had happened to us. And she's like, 4 blocks over here, there's a traveler's hospital. This is socialized medicine country in Amsterdam there in Denmark. We walked the 4 blocks over there, walked in without an appointment, said, hey, I need to be seen by somebody because my Lyrica was confiscated when we were in the United Arab Emirates, and I need to see about getting a replacement. I waited 15 minutes. I saw a doctor. He said, this is horrible. He asked to see my phone where I had all my prescriptions. He looked it up on there. Oh, okay. He wrote me a prescription for Amsterdam. I paid $50. 15-minute wait and paid $50. I left there, walked 3 blocks over the other direction to the pharmacy, paid $30 to get a 2-week supply of Lyrica, which, trust me, even before my insurance kicks in, that is not, $30 is not even close to, that's like a third of what I pay for my Lyrica. So $30, I had a 2-week supply of Lyrica, and I was back over at our place we were staying an hour later.
Okay, so a few things. Number one, Denmark, can you adopt us? I mean, like,
For reals?
please. We're really great podcast hosts. We're lovely. We'd be a great addition to your country.
It'd be great for you because it's cold there,
Oh my god.
but not so good for me.
Trying, like, I'm like, Stu, come on, you work for an international banking company. Can we please go international? Somewhere where I don't have to pay a few $1,000s to see the doctor. It'd be great.
And this was it was specifically for people who were traveling. And so it was quick in, quick out. They got me the prescription I needed. I walked to the pharmacy, got it filled. It was just the most painless process I've ever been through when it comes to getting medication. And that's including picking up stuff that has been prescribed for me at my local pharmacy. So at least I was able to get my medication back and not have to deal with that aspect of things.
And travelers' hospitals are a good thing to know about. I did not know about travelers' hospitals, but I don't travel very much. But that's a good thing.
I didn't either. If she hadn't told me about it, I didn't. I was panicking up until, she mentioned, oh, there's this thing over here. You can just go over here and it's bing, bang, boom. And it's like, you're kidding. That simple? And I was figuring it was going to be expensive. Nope. 15-minute wait to see a doctor with no appointment.
Our resident Australian says, like, in her country, like, where she comes from, she feels like the government is there for if you get kicked down to the ground, the government's there to help you back up. But in the United States, I think we're so used to the second we stumble, the government jumps on us and kicks us as far down into the grave as they can.
Yes.
That for anything to be simple is shocking. Like,
yes.
It's just I'm sorry, that's taking, they're saying that didn't take, I don't know how to process this anymore.
It was simple, it was fast, it was cheap. It's not supposed to be all three.
Or any thereof. Like,
any of them, yes.
I was just put in the hospital, and before we went to the hospital, we thought that I could be having a heart attack at that moment. My husband still had to call our insurance agency and spend a half an hour before I could go to the hospital, making sure that we were all cleared to go to the hospital.
Yeah, thankfully I don't have that, but yes, our insurance is different. I don't have to clear it first, thankfully. Yeah,
we all have very, like, by the way, if you're listening to this in another country, our insurances are all very different.
Yes.
And they have very different rules. None of them cover everything except one person's insurance I've ever heard of.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody's that covers everything well.
Yeah, I only know one person, and it's an insane government contract that does not exist anymore. It was a moment in time. But when you hear us all talking about different things, it's because all of our insurances do different things, cover different amounts. The complexities are so insane. You would need a law degree to even read through your contract.
and figure out who's covered, and we had to add my kid to our insurance recently, and figuring out what he's covered for and how all that works out and everything else. And we had to have a qualifying event to be able to even add him to our insurance because he's my step kid. So I legally adopted him. So that was a qualifying event. We could do it outside of the normal cycle because you sign up in November. Mm-hmm. So since we weren't able to sign him up in November, we had to wait until the legal adoption went through to be able to actually add him to our insurance.
Yeah. So anyway, when we're talking about this stuff, it's just jaw-dropping to any of us when something just goes simple, easy, and does not require a massive bill.
And believe it or not, we are at 58 minutes.
We are, all
so
right.
we are right at the end of our podcast.
So,
and we covered everything even.
I'm shocked.
With no outline.
See, I told you if we just go chaos, it'll all work out fine. It's your outlines that I see an outline and I've got to push against it.
Yeah.
If we go with no outline, see how smooth it goes?
Yeah, that's because I was doing all the talking. Because I have it all organized in my head.
All right, all of y'all who call me shrill and annoying, I would like at least some equal play, just for the sake of feminism on this. Just a little backup here, please.
Nope, I'm right. She's wrong.
Thank God I'm not married to you. Okay. All right. So.
Oh no! Yeah. True.
Welcome back and goodbye again, since you're leaving me again.
Yes, I'm leaving again for 3 weeks because I have to go up to Seattle to deal with my house.
Yeah. All right. Just leave me to take care of this all by myself with Eva and Dr. Phillips.
Yes.
We do have 2 new co-hosts, so that's been very helpful and awesome.
Yes.
Anyway, so back to housekeeping. This is super shareable. Please
share it.
If you're listening to this and you know people who are traveling, I don't care if they're disabled or chronically ill, you just need to share this because they might be on a medication that they might not know about. This is a good one just to send out to anyone you know who's traveling. Also, again, if you know someone in big HRs, if you know anyone who is running things like Kayak or Travelocity or any of the big like travel tech companies, please send this episode over to them. There could be some like very basic programming changes that it could just have an alert flash up if someone is going to a country that has very stringent rules on medications so that they are aware immediately of some basic facts. I think that could be a really great add-on to a travel tech company. So please, if you have those contacts, send it over there. If you have contacts with local news agencies, this is a good story. Please send it over to a local news agency. I think that this is important. Kyrus was really lucky. He could have gotten much more hurt, much sicker. He could have been detained much longer. Kyrus and I did not want this to happen to you.
No.
It could have been very dangerous. If you're talking about someone insulin who was denied insulin for hours and hours and hours.
I doubt they would deny someone insulin that long, but
it denied
still.
you having your heart medication.
Yeah, it was in my bag, or in the bag that they had. So yeah, I didn't have it. So if I'd had but I am fairly certain, and I want to say this, I'm fairly certain if I had told them I needed it, they would have gotten it for me. They were very nice to me. They were not mean to me.
And that's lovely.
But they were really not communicating well with me, and we had a lot of language barrier issues. So,
and there are people who are not going to feel safe raising their hand and going, I need this.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm even as scared as I was, I could go up and talk to them, but I'm also 6'2", 300-pound big guy.
And I can tell you, I wouldn't necessarily feel safe as like 5'3" little
and
Disney
all these
character.
guys wearing machine guns to walk up and talk to them.
And I also have massive post-traumatic stress around guns. If I see a gun, I seriously have a huge issue.
I mean, I know that.
So what I'm just saying is like, please pass this along because it could have been so much worse.
I just wanted to make sure again, back to that whole clarifying that they were being very nice to me. They were being very understanding. They weren't rude to me. They just were not communicating with me, which is what had me in a terrified state. And the guys were wearing machine guns and guns, so it was not comfortable. I was not comfortable walking up talking to them. I did, but someone who was not as comfortable could have sat there and just had issues. Yes. I just wanted to clarify that because that's...
No worries. And the main reason we're doing this is because it was something that came out of left field. And let's not come out of left field for both of us. We both research things to the integration why we do a podcast.
Yes.
So when we felt like something came out of left field, we felt pretty certain that this would not be on a lot of other people's radars. So we really just wanted to bring it to your attention. So thank you so much for listening.
Yes.
Tune in next week, please. I still haven't run up the schedule for next month, but I'm sure it'll be good. Always is. So until next week. Oh, and still, nicest thing you can do for us, head over to Apple Podcast, say nice things about us. Believe me, enough people have said I'm shrill and annoying. You don't need to add to it. I promise. We all get it.
I can tell it's bothering you. You brought it up several times.
It didn't bother me. I thought it was hilarious at first, and then someone was like, you're a woman with an opinion. Of course they called you shrill. I'm like, now I'm pissed. Before it was a taste issue. Now I'm pissed. So yeah, I can't modulate my voice. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way. But again, like we do have some really great sister podcasts that if my voice annoys the hell out of you, may I recommend a few other ones. Not What I Ordered is fantastic, and her voice is like butter, smooth, gorgeous. So if my voice is too much and you need the Chronic Illness podcast help, that's a great one to go to. Anyway, so please say nice things about us if you can. We've heard enough of that one complaint. If you have other complaints, hey, I'm totally into hearing them. Totally fine. I will read them, and I'll talk about them ad nauseum forever. So go ahead and do that. I think that's it for the pod. Oh, share us. Always share us.
Yes.
I'm so grateful. I mean, to have Africa, multiple countries in Africa start listening.
Awesome.
I am humbled. Like, that's amazing. China, Russia, thank you so much for tuning in. Malaysia, want to visit you guys so bad. Thank you for tuning in. We've just been getting incredible international audience. Costa Rica, thank you for tuning in. You are our first country from South America tuning in, so I'm super psyched. That's been really... Oh, Central America? Sorry. I'm horrible American with geography. So anyway, point being, super humbled, grateful for international audience. Please keep sharing us. Until next week.
Be kind.
Be gentle.
And be a badass.
Yeah, fucking badass.